is the largest gecko in the world, the lychee gecko. And this is typically what they look like. This mossy look that is like greenish with some yellow spots. Sometimes you get a little bit of pink in it, but this is a pretty typical lychee gecko. But earlier today, Jess showed me something pretty interesting.
What the hell are you guys doing?
No, not this.
Yeah, and that's when I said,
Really?
whoa!
What the heck?
What is this? She's cool, isn't she?
Whoa! Oh, the catch!
What a catch!
What actually? What is? I haven't even seen. Is this the baby that
That's
we
the
had?
baby that we bought, the dark morph
Gosh,
one.
I haven't even seen that in a while. So what is the locality on this?
So she is a Yati crossed with a Pandini.
Oh my God, that thing is crazy how dark it is, and
And
like
the
these
little white, I like the darkness with the, I call them stars.
How about Maleficent?
Ooh, 'cause she's
Maleficent.
darker.
That's good. That's
like
good.
that.
Not only is this gecko absolutely amazing, but it's getting an enclosure upgrade today. We actually got this enclosure from ZooMed down at AnimalCon. By the way, AnimalCon's coming up September 15th through 17th down in Orlando. You can go to animalconusa.com. Tickets are going to be on sale anytime. So this enclosure was super cool. It's got a bunch of really neat things, but it had some plants in here that just had to get taken out. So we have some work to do on this. And of course, you know that Jessica's a master at this type of stuff. So let's see what the plan is to actually see what this thing is going to turn like for Maleficent. All right, so this is all the stuff we have, right, Jessica?
Yeah, so we're going to kind of mix it together.
Okay, what's the
Just
idea?
because lychees tend to destroy the live plants that we put in there.
Okay, gotcha. So what's the idea? You're thinking about foliage and
Yeah,
some...
so we've already got this stuff already, secured in here. I think we'll put the two plants down at the bottom to fill up a bunch of the space.
Okay.
They spend more time up here, so they probably won't mess with them as much.
And then these are all just fake plants
yeah,
that look
and
cool.
then we
like-
could add a little bit more of this in if we want to.
Oh, that's cool. Jessica certainly, she's got some work to be done here, and we know that she's the master of this. Rather than me getting in the way, I'm just going to go ahead and let her do her magic. And after we're done with this, I'm actually going to build a stand so it fits with the decor here at the VIP podcast room. That'll be something coming up in the next couple weeks. But before we get too deep into the build of the new enclosure, I wanted to show you some of the babies that we hatched this year. It's the first year that we ever hatched lychee geckos. When I say we, it was basically Jessica, of course. And of course, these are the first two babies that hatched. This one is crazy how white it is. It's
That's cool, isn't it? So this one's more fired up than that one, so they probably look more similar when they're fired up. But yeah, they've got that pretty purple color, which comes from the Nuami.
Wow, that is so incredible. I mean, again, you got to remember, Jessica takes care of these geckos, so a lot of times I don't see them for a long time. When I see them hatch out, and then here months later, I see how much they've grown and how they've changed. It's absolutely amazing. And this is the baby that just hatched out. Remember when I did the 24-hour challenge with the King Cobra? If you haven't seen that video, I'm going to put a card right here. You can actually check that out. But this one actually hatched out while I was spending 24 hours in this room with the King Cobra. So this is only less than a week old. And look at how cool it is. The pattern is absolutely wonderful. Now, when it hatched, it was much, much darker. So it's lightened up quite a bit. It's unbelievable. It's amazing to think that this little tiny lychee is one day going to get giant and be the largest gecko on the planet. And take a look at the color on this one here.
From the same pairing, but it's like way pinker in person than all of the other babies that have hatched from Shrek and Fiona.
Wow, that is crazy. I mean, it's so beautiful. Do you think as it gets older, it get more and more pink probably?
Maybe, we'll see. So I thought that the original first babies that hatched would, keep that pink color, but they've gone more purple. So it might end up looking more purplish or frosty colored.
Nevertheless, absolutely wonderful. And it's so cool to finally be hatching lychee geckos. Jessica, it's already looking amazing. I mean, it just went from kind of like a brown type of thing to already popping and stuff like that. I tell you what, Maleficent is gonna love this for sure. This is looking great, man, already. I mean, just like that, it's unbelievable. And here's actually a GT baby here. Now, we don't know exactly what the locality is, right? This is a generic locality.
Yep.
Just a mix, and that's what's amazing. I mean, look how cool it is. But again, a lot of the GTs get really large because the main islands typically have a larger food source, typically, meaning the animals on mainland typically are a little bit larger than the insular islands. It's so cute. I tell you what, it's so amazing. I remember getting our very first lychee gecko. And that first gecko actually was this one right here. You guys may remember her. Her name is Big Bertha. She used to be on display at the Reptarium for the first 2 or 3 years of her life. But now she's down here in the breeding room trying to get some eggs for her. She has not laid eggs left. And she's, again, what they would call a generic GT. Now, GT stands for Grand Terra, which is the main island of New Caledonia. And there's a ton of localities in New Caledonia that actually can go for a lot of money. $10,000 plus for some really sought-after localities. But this is what they would call a generic GT, meaning that we don't really know where she came from. In the beginning, when people were collecting these guys and they were getting getting imported into the country, some people were keeping them very specific into the localities, and other people were just kind of breeding, you know, this gecko to this gecko, not even thinking about it. So right now you can get generic GTs, which are still really amazing, and some of the bigger of the geckos on New Caledonia, but they're not actually really super high priced because they're generic. Once you get into the specific locality, that's when the price starts going up. Maleficent's dad is what they would call a Yeti locality. It's one of my favorite of the localities because it's one of the largest of the gecko species. The largest gecko that I've ever seen was a Yeti. Now there's other ones that get really large too. And to give you an idea of where New Caledonia is, it's actually a French-owned island that is actually off the coast of Australia, probably about a 2.5 hour flight from Australia. And it's again a large island, Grand Terra, surrounded by many insular islands. Now oftentimes when you get into things, even like in Indonesia, you get into the insular islands, that's when you get more dwarf species. There's not as much food source because it's kind of closed off into a smaller area. Hence the reason why most insular island, including the New Caledonia lychee geckos, are actually a little bit smaller. Now, interestingly enough, the GTs are now actually referred to as Rhacodactylus lycheanus, and the insular islands are actually known as Rhacodactylus lycheanus ankylai. So now they're subspecies of the original one. They used to all just be called lychees. Now they're actually subspecies, which is pretty interesting how they've actually reclassified them for smaller animals compared to the main island of GT.
Getting the soil wet a little bit to create some humidity in here, just because it's pretty dry.
Take a look at this. Speaking of insular islands, this is an absolute ripper. Now this is what they would call a Brose Island or Brose Island. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. But again, it's a locality specific animal that's on an insular island of the GT area. And just look at the color. This particular locality is known for this really high contrast like this. And again, this is about adult here, right? So a GT or the generic ones or some of the localities on GT are going to get much larger, sometimes twice as large as this, whereas the insular islands typically stay smaller. Now some of the insular islands get a little bit bigger, but the Brose Islands typically stay about this size.
This is another Brose Island or Brose Island. He's one of my favorites. Check out that little black freckle, and he's got a little yellow freckle too.
And then this is actually a Nuami insular island animal. You can see how different they are. I realize that overall when you take a look at lychees, to the general person they're going to think they all look basically the same. But you can see how different the coloration is, that contrast. The amount of pink, the amount of purples and stuff like that that come through in particular localities. Some are much lighter, some are much darker, some are more green, some are more like brown. So every locality does look different. I'm no expert in it by a long shot. But there's certainly people out there that could actually just look at this animal and say, oh, that's a Nuami right off the bat, or hey, that's a Brose Island, or whatever the case may be. In my case, I have to know who I'm buying them from, trust them to tell me what the locality is, and then we keep them separate so that we know exactly what they are. So although most of ours are generic GTs, and we really love all of them, we do want to start getting more into the specific localities because it's really cool to kind of track the localities and the genealogy behind each of those animals. And when Jessica first came to us and started wanting to work with lychees, they were super expensive.
They were like so out of my price range. I was like, I'll never get a lychee. They're just so expensive.
I know, and they're still not cheap, but they are coming down. You know, buy like a little tiny baby, how much do they cost?
You can find them for around $400 now.
Exactly, those are generics. That's not the locality stuff, but you can find generic GTs for as low as $400. But so they're starting to become kind of more affordable. So if you're thinking like, hey, lychees are out of my price range, they're starting to get to the point where they're pet grade, which is really cool. And that's what we really love about them because they are absolutely wonderful animals to keep. Holy cow, man, this is so cool. Take a look at it. It literally is like a little jungle in an enclosure. I think it's freaking amazing. So, Jessica, what do you say we grab Maleficent and show her her new home?
Let's do it.
So as you can see, Maleficent is actually in a pretty cool enclosure now, but it's going to get a much larger one. But it's so incredibly camouflaged.
Can you
so
see her?
I'm trying to think where it's. I tell you what, this animal.
Oh, she's right here on the stick.
I mean, if you were in New Caledonia looking for these guys, the chance of finding them are literally so slim, it's unbelievable. One day I've got to get there to go check it out too. Matter of fact, there was just a piece on New Caledonia that had nothing to do with reptiles, and they called it the Real World Jurassic Park because it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's been undisturbed for so long, and there's animals there that are so unique, like these lychee geckos, which is pretty cool. But let's go ahead and get Maleficent in its new enclosure. God, she looks so good in there. How awesome is that?
You think we can get a male for her soon?
I think we should work on that. We'll keep you guys updated, no doubt about it. There it is, guys. New enclosure for Maleficent. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, there's a playlist that you can watch all kinds of videos. You can also hit that subscription button. It would mean a lot to me. Also, hit that like button while you're down there. Have a wonderful day, Reptile Army. Remember...
I'm gonna go for like... Oh, sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to actually do it.